There is a quiet truth about success that most people only discover after they begin to rise. Success does not only bring admiration, it also brings suspicion. It does not only attract applause, it attracts criticism, envy, projection, and sometimes hatred from people who were never really angry at you in the first place. They were angry at what your existence forced them to see. Because when you are ordinary, people can ignore you. When you are struggling, they may even feel comfortable around you. Your weakness does not challenge them. Your confusion does not disturb them. Your excuses make their excuses feel safe. But the moment you begin to separate yourself from the crowd, the moment you start building discipline, competence, confidence, and results, something changes in the atmosphere around you. People begin to look at you differently. Not always because you have done something wrong, but because your growth has become a mirror. And most people do not hate mirrors because mirrors lie. They hate mirrors because mirrors tell the truth too clearly. A successful person becomes a target because success removes comfort from the people who are still negotiating with their own weakness. It becomes harder for them to say, "It is impossible," when they are watching you do it. It becomes harder for them to say, "There is no way out," when you are quietly creating one. It becomes harder for them to say, "Nobody can win from this position," when you started from a place not so different from theirs and still chose to rise. That is why the first attack is rarely about facts. It is about emotion. It is about discomfort. It is about the human need to explain away another person's excellence so that we do not have to confront our own lack of effort. This is one of the oldest patterns in the human mind. When people succeed, they usually explain their success internally. They say, "I worked hard, I was smart, I made the right decisions, I saw the opportunity before others did." But when people fail, they often explain their failure externally. They say, "The system was against me, the market was unfair, other people had advantages, someone else blocked my path." Sometimes those things are true. Life is not perfectly fair. Some people do begin with more advantages than others. Some systems are broken. Some doors are closed before you even reach them. But the danger begins when external blame becomes a permanent home. Because the moment a person gives all power to outside forces, they also give away the one thing that could have saved them: responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. That is why so many people avoid it. It is much easier to believe that someone else's success is corrupt than to study the discipline behind it. It is much easier to say they cheated than to ask, "What did they understand that I refused to learn?" It is much easier to call someone lucky than to examine the years of invisible repetition, the private sacrifices, the boring consistency, the nights they kept going when nobody was watching. The weak mind protects itself by reducing greatness to an accusation. The strong mind studies greatness as evidence. That is the difference. One person sees a successful man and says, "He must have done something wrong." Another person sees the same man and says, "There is a pattern here, there is a system here, there is something I can learn." One person turns excellence into resentment. The other turns excellence into instruction. And over time, that difference becomes destiny. Because your reaction to someone else's success reveals whether you are ready to grow. If their success makes you bitter, you are still trapped in comparison. If their success makes you curious, you are beginning to mature. If their success makes you disciplined, then you are no longer a spectator. You are becoming dangerous in the best possible way. The world has always punished those who rise above the average. Not always with open violence, not always with direct attack, but with whispers, suspicion, distortion, and the constant need to drag them back down to a level that feels emotionally manageable for everyone else. This is why many people fear success more than failure. Failure is painful, but it is familiar. Failure gives you excuses. Failure lets you belong to the crowd. Failure allows you to say, "I tried," even when you did not fully commit. But success exposes you. It removes your hiding place. It places you in the open, where people can judge your decisions, question your motives, exaggerate your mistakes, and misunderstand your silence. Success is not just a reward. It is a responsibility. And this is why you must be careful what kind of person you become on the way up. If your mind is weak, attention will poison you. If your identity is built on approval, criticism will destroy you. If you need everyone to understand you, you will waste your life explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. But if your mind is disciplined, if your identity is rooted in values, if your purpose is deeper than applause, then being targeted will not break you. It will clarify you. Because every attack asks a question. Do you really know who you are? Every criticism asks a question. Are you still committed when you are no longer praised? Every moment of envy around you asks a question. Can you continue building when others are trying to pull you back into the small version of yourself they were comfortable with? This is the test that comes after the breakthrough. Most people think the hard part is becoming successful. It is not. The harder part is remaining grounded after success begins to change how people treat you. The harder part is staying clean when praise tempts your ego and criticism tempts your anger. The harder part is learning how to walk through misunderstanding without becoming bitter, arrogant, or defensive. Because if you rise long enough, you will be misread. If you build long enough, you will be doubted. If you win long enough, someone will create a story about you that makes your success easier for them to digest. Let them. You do not need to answer every distorted story. You do not need to chase every rumor. You do not need to sit at every table where your name is being discussed. A man who is truly building cannot afford to spend his life defending himself against every opinion created by people who are not building anything. There is a time to speak, and there is a time to remain silent. There is a time to correct the record, and there is a time to let your work become the record. There is a time to explain, and there is a time to understand that explanation is just another form of begging when given to people who have already chosen their conclusion. Your energy is sacred. Do not spend it trying to convince people who benefit emotionally from believing the worst about you. Spend it becoming undeniable, because the best response to envy is not revenge, it is excellence. The best response to doubt is not noise, it is consistency. The best response to being underestimated is not anger. It is quiet execution over a long enough timeline that reality itself becomes your defense. This is where the deeper lesson begins. Successful people, successful families, successful communities, successful civilizations, they do not rise by accident. They usually carry certain patterns. They value learning. They respect discipline. They pass down expectations. They build networks. They protect standards. They do not treat knowledge as decoration. They treat knowledge as survival. And this is where most people make the fatal mistake. They see the outcome, but they do not study the culture that created the outcome. They see the wealth, but they do not study the habits. They see the influence, but they do not study the patience. They see the confidence, but they do not study the years of preparation that made confidence rational. So instead of learning the code, they attack the result. But you cannot defeat excellence by resenting it. You cannot become powerful by hating powerful people. You cannot become disciplined by mocking disciplined people. You cannot become free by blaming everyone who escaped the prison you still refuse to leave. At some point, a serious person must stop asking, "Why do they have more than me?" and start asking, "What are they doing that I am not willing to do?" That question hurts, but that question can save your life. Because buried inside that question is the death of victimhood. Maybe they read more than you. Maybe they take education more seriously. Maybe they choose long-term advantage over short-term pleasure. Maybe they do not worship comfort the way you do. Maybe they protect their circle better. Maybe they waste less time. Maybe they are more strategic. Maybe they have been trained from childhood to see excellence as normal, while you were trained to see average as enough. And if that is true, then the path forward is not hatred. The path forward is transformation. Raise your standard, change your environment, strengthen your mind, study the people who win. Stop using their success as proof that life is unfair and start using it as proof that a higher level exists. Because the truth is cold, but it is also liberating. Someone is always becoming stronger while you are explaining why you cannot. Someone is always learning while you are scrolling. Someone is always training while you are recovering from excuses you created yourself. Someone is always building a future that will look like luck to people who never saw the private price they paid. And if you are not careful, you will spend your entire life calling other people privileged, lucky, corrupt, or connected, when the deeper truth is that you never built the internal structure required to carry the life you said you wanted. This is not comfortable to hear, but comfort is not the goal. Clarity is. A person who wants to grow must become brutally honest about the stories they use to protect themselves. Every excuse has a cost. Every blame has a cost. Every time you explain away another person's success, you train your mind to avoid the lesson hidden inside it. And over time, this becomes a prison, not a prison made of walls, but a prison made of explanations. You explain why you cannot start. You explain why you cannot focus. You explain why your past damaged you. You explain why the market is bad, why people are fake, why the timing is wrong, why the world is unfair. And maybe some of those explanations are true, but even true explanations can become chains if you use them to avoid action. The question is not whether life has been unfair to you. The question is whether you are going to make unfairness your identity. Because once unfairness becomes your identity, you will unconsciously protect it. You will reject evidence that you can change. You will resent people who prove that discipline works. You will mock the habits that could save you. You will call ambition toxic because you're afraid to admit that your own ambition has been asleep for years. Wake it up, not loudly, not dramatically, not for applause. Wake it up in the quiet. Wake it up when nobody is watching. Wake it up by reading when you used to distract yourself. Wake it up by training when you used to negotiate. Wake it up by saving money when you used to spend to feel alive. Wake it up by choosing one difficult promise and keeping it long enough to rebuild self-respect. Because self-respect does not return through motivation. It returns through evidence. You need evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that when you say you will do something, you do it. Evidence that your emotions no longer own the steering wheel. Evidence that your future is not being controlled by the weakest version of your past. And once that evidence begins to accumulate, something in you changes. You stop needing the world to be perfectly fair before you act. You stop needing people to validate your plan before you move. You stop waiting for a clean road, a perfect mood, a supportive crowd, or a guaranteed outcome. You begin to understand that life rewards the person who can act without emotional permission. This is the kind of person who becomes dangerous. Not dangerous because he wants to harm others, but dangerous because he can no longer be controlled by the ordinary weapons: shame, doubt, envy, mockery, loneliness, misunderstanding. He has accepted the price. He knows that if he rises, some people will target him. He knows that if he becomes disciplined, undisciplined people may call him extreme. He knows that if he becomes wealthy, broke-minded people may call him greedy. He knows that if he becomes focused, distracted people may call him boring. He knows that if he protects his values, people with no values may call him rigid. But he also knows something they do not know. A life built for approval is a life built on sand. So he stops building for applause. He builds for truth. He builds for mastery. He builds for the quiet dignity of becoming the kind of person he once needed. And this is where the speech becomes personal, because you already know what you need to do. You may not know every detail. You may not know every step, but you know the direction. You know which habits are weakening you. You know which people drain your focus. You know which excuses you repeat so often that they have started to sound like wisdom. You know where you are lying to yourself. And deep down, you also know that nobody is coming to rescue you from the version of yourself that you keep feeding. So stop feeding him. Stop feeding the version of you that needs comfort before action. Stop feeding the version of you that studies successful people only to criticize them. Stop feeding the version of you that waits for perfect confidence before making imperfect progress. Stop feeding the version of you that wants the reward without the standard. There is a higher version of you waiting, but he is not waiting in fantasy. He is waiting in discipline. He is waiting in repetition. He is waiting in the uncomfortable silence after you turn off the distraction and face the work. And when you meet him, you will understand why the old you had to die quietly. Not in one dramatic moment, but through 1,000 small refusals. A refusal to complain, a refusal to envy, a refusal to blame. A refusal to waste another day studying the lives of successful people without becoming one of them, because the final truth is simple. Successful people become targets because they are visible, but strong people survive being targeted because they are rooted in values, rooted in discipline, rooted in a mission that is bigger than being liked. And if you want that kind of life, you must be willing to become the kind of person who no longer needs everyone to understand the path before you walk it. Let them doubt. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them project their fear onto your ambition. Your job is not to make your success emotionally comfortable for people who chose comfort over growth. Your job is to build. Quietly, seriously, relentlessly, until the life you live becomes the answer to every excuse you once believed.